Hello. Are there actual humans here? I'm very curious to see if there are actual humans here. Welcome. Aaron, my screen, just so you know, is just times. There we go. Hello, yay, there are humans here. So I'm not drinking espresso today. I am drinking a non-alcoholic cocktail, which I am excited, but Claire does not make any claims to be an actual human. So if folks are here right where you're at with whatever level of specificity you're comfortable with in the chat, and then we should have a map pop up that shows where folks are, which I think is always very exciting. I really, really want to drink this cocktail, but I'm going to wait until after. Ooh, nice. Okay, all right, we've got two continents covered. Two continents and one coast. I can tell whoever wrote Australia wrote just Australia and not the specific place they're at, because that is the middle of Australia, and I'm pretty sure no one lives in the exact middle of Australia. Although, feel free to inform me otherwise. But aren't there, like, a total of, like, 5,000 people or something that live in that part of Australia? It's very few. Very few people. Because it's not very hospitable. Well, thanks for joining. I did very little promo for this, but I think the advantages of being in the advantages of doing it at the same time every week is that people show up even when I do almost no promo for it, which is because, as I mentioned last week on the live stream, and many people on the forums know, I have had the whole week off of all 3 jobs because I quit one of my jobs on Friday, and I took a week off of PTO at my other job. And while I did do some on my dollar work this week, which is my 3rd job, I kept it pretty light. So part of that was that I just didn't do very much promo. So I am very glad to hear this is becoming part of folks' Saturday night ritual. It's kind of a weird thing to do on a Saturday night, but also, what's normal right now, right? So I guess, this time is going to probably have to change if I move to London next year, since it is at 1 a.m. London time. And I don't think I'm going to be up at 1 a.m. and definitely not someone that's capable of doing a live stream. All right. So the donut is looking a little worse for wear because I picked it up this morning, but I will introduce you to the donut that we have to talk about today. So this is a matcha donut with an actual, live pansy on the top, and that is why it's not looking quite as pretty, is that it is a flower. I tried to revitalize the flower a little bit, but it's really not doing great. So it's a matcha cake donut. I'm pretty excited about it. I don't really know what the red stuff is. I don't know, we'll find out. I will say, it might not be the best example because I picked it up at 8 a.m. It's now 5 p.m. And also, I put it in the fridge trying to preserve the flour, but then I had to microwave it, for 10 seconds to heat it up. So it's been through a lot. This donut has been through a lot. But what looks extremely pretty, normally I just have espresso, but I have this non-alcoholic cocktail, which is a spirit from For Bitter or Worse, and I'll show you the package. And then Aaron shook it with aquafaba, which is what comes out of garbanzo beans. So if you get a can of chickpeas or you make them, that liquid aquafaba gives you this really amazing foam, and essentially can kind of substitute for a lot of egg whitey things. So people use it to make meringues and stuff like that. So it also can be used to make cocktails. I love this. So this is the one that it's made out of. It is Smoky number 56, and this is a Portland non-alcoholic spirit. These were pretty pricey, but I also don't drink, so it's not really a super expensive thing. It says, enjoy Smoky number 56 with an orange twist or cocktail cherry, or chill until ice cold and enjoy in a coupe with a rosemary sprig. Get fancy with a shaker and make a sour. So this is pretty much a whiskey sour, I would say, although it's a little cinnamony. Amanda says, does the liquid taste like chickpeas? I had no idea that was a thing. No, it doesn't taste like chickpeas. It's like, it's really just there to resemble, like, egg whites. So you would never, like, use it just by itself. You have to put some sort of other flavor with it. But no, it pretty much doesn't taste like chickpeas at all. But you can look up aquafaba recipes. So if for some reason egg whites don't make sense for you, like you're vegan or you are like can't do eggs, then aquafaba can be used for some of those like fancier desserts. I don't think it's like a very good substitute for eggs. Like you wouldn't want to use it in most baking, but you wouldn't want to use it for something that is explicitly egg whites. So, which is usually one of the bases in like sours. So this whole bottle, I think, was $24. But, you know, I've had like 4 drinks out of this thus far. We worked it out, and I think it ends up being around $2 a cocktail, which is similar to what Aaron pays for non-alcoholic or for alcoholic cocktails. So it's really priced similar to a spirit rather than like similar to a soda. But, you know, it's like a treat. I think one of the reasons I enjoy not drinking is that I enjoy not spending a bunch of money on cocktails, so it's not like I want to just substitute buying fancy bottles of spirits, but it's made in Portland. It's like a cute local company. They sent this adorable letterpressed card with it that made me immediately want to make Oh My Dollar letterpressed cards. Anyway, this is great. Whiskey is was my favorite drink when I was drinking, and I have found it an extremely difficult flavor to recreate without alcohol, that like smokiness in it. So Penny was not a fan of this. You said it was barbecue juice. Because Penny also got this. I found out about this via Penny. I didn't consent to the ordering of these to the house, by the way. They just showed up. So apparently it's an early birthday present because I will definitely be indulging in them. I do, now that you say barbecue juice and it's in my mouth, I get where you get that kind of taste from it. It definitely has some sort of like liquid smoke in it or something in order to try to get that smoky flavor. Anyway, I'm enjoying it. It's also extremely low in sugar, so that's the other thing, is it's really challenging to find non-alcoholic cocktails and often just like interesting non-alcoholic drinks that aren't just like caffeine that aren't loaded with sugar, and the sugars in these are extremely low. I think like per serving, which is bigger than this cocktail, it was 7 grams of sugar, which is really, it's quite low. It's much lower than like fruit juice or something similar. So yes. Penny, I'm not offended that you don't like it. You can send the bottle to me if you want. So, anyway, that's what I've been up to this week. Mostly chilling, which is a new experience for me. And also tomorrow, I'm going to go ice skating in the morning. I found out that, so it's really challenging to get to, so the rink that I normally skate at, as for people that have been following the whole skating saga, Julie said, I just tuned in, what's the brand of the drink? It's called For Bitter or For Worse. And I think that's their website, is forbitterorworse.com. It says it contains no milk, eggs, tree nuts, peanuts, wheat, fish, crustacean, shellfish, soybeans, or alcohol. It's very like apple cider vinegar based, which, you know, whew. So the ice skating situation. When the world shut down, every rink in the world shut down, and initially like just some of them were shutting, and then it like every single figure skater in the world had to not skate, including like folks that are extremely elite still weren't getting access to rinks for quite a while. Some of the elite skaters were able to get back on a little earlier because they were paying for essentially like semi-private ice. So a couple of them went back on like 3 weeks ago was really the earliest that anybody was allowed to go back on ice. And most ice rinks are doing it like in an extremely limited way, where they're like max they're allowing on the ice is like 10 people and they're having you wear masks and social distance and everything. And I was really struggling, especially as like an immunosuppressed person, if I should go back to the rink. The rink that is the easiest for me to get to is not going to open anytime soon because it's in a mall. It's a super tiny rink, and that's like the one that I usually go to because it's very close to my house. I can bike ride there in just like 15 minutes. The next closest rink is in over the river in Washington. It's actually where Tanya Harding still teaches, so yeah, no, very cool. And that rink they actually completely melted down the ice because they are pretty small business rink. They don't have like a big rink management company that's bankrolling them. They actually were like run by a church for a really long time, and then the skating community kind of got together and like purchased the ice rink from the church because the church otherwise was going to sell the lot. Anyway, that rink it's not super easy for me to get to. I have to bike there, but since transit has been kind of a thing you don't want to do, it's been a little easier. And I was planning on going there, but they said that they aren't going to really reopen until probably phase 4. And Washington is nowhere at phase 4. So there's 2 other rinks that are opening, which are limiting to 10 skaters on the ice, and so it's double the price. And if you don't know how expensive figure skating is already, I had really gotten it down by doing some like kind of savvy stuff and skating on kind of like subpar ice and stuff like that. But I had gotten my marginal cost down to like $5 an hour, but generally a freestyle session for figure skating is around $12 for 50 minutes. And that's the kind of ice that you need as like a higher level skater. And so most of the rinks are now charging $25 or $30 for an hour session, and they have extremely limited sessions, and they're only doing it for like high level skaters, like no public skate, nothing like that. And there is an adult only session on Tuesdays and Thursdays at one of the rinks, and that rink is 12 miles on my bike, which isn't a big deal, but that session starts at 5 a.m., ends at 7:30 a.m., and it is 12 miles from my house, and the easiest way to like cut the time down would be to take the train, which still brings my total commute time to about an hour and 10 minutes, like bikes plus train. There's almost no one on the train at that hour, so I feel like social distance wise, wear a mask, like I'm not gonna run into anyone. However, the train is running on a reduced schedule. So I would have to get up at like 3:15 in the morning to ride my bike up 600 feet of elevation gain, 12 miles, to then go work out for an hour, and work out for an hour when I am paying $25 an hour to work out. So I don't think I'm going to be going to those sessions, unfortunately. I'm like disappointed about it, but at the same time, like this is an expensive hobby, and I already was really tossing up in the air if it made sense to go, like with the social distancing in effect. My rheumatologist, my doctor said like it's probably okay, but she said like obviously it's safer to stay home, but like it does seem relatively low risk with those precautions being taken. But there is one session a week, 8 a.m. Sundays, which I can get to on the train. So tomorrow I'm going to take my first transit in like 4 or 5 months, and I'm going to take, and I'm going to go skating. So we'll see how it is. I'm sure it's going to be terrible. Like everyone I've heard from getting back on the ice, they like don't remember how to operate. I took 15 years off, but I had so much lower expectations when I came back after 15 years as compared to coming back since I've been training for almost a year, since I came back and then taking 4 months off. Like, how is it going to work out? I don't know. Find out. Yeah. Whew. Nathan says, my very yacht whiny struggle is interesting tasting things that aren't boozy or sugary. Thanks for the tip. Yeah, that's also my yacht whiny struggle. It's frustrating because it's back when we could go to bars, I would find myself wanting to support local bars, but they had literally nothing for me to buy, right? You know, it'd be like, oh, I could just buy coffee or something like that. And who wants coffee when I'm meeting a friend at 8 p.m.? So, yeah, this is super new though. They just came out. Like, they're brand new. So, anyway, that's an ice skating update. It was a long-winded update. But tomorrow I'm gonna go do it, I guess. Find out. I don't know how it's going to be. I'm trying to go in with extremely low expectations. I've been watching people's, like, vlogs of coming back to skating and stuff. The Canadian national men's champion actually is, like, a pretty active YouTuber, and he's been doing, like, vlogs of him getting back on the ice. It's been very fascinating. It took him, like, 3 weeks to kind of start landing quads again. So, yeah, that's the update. Is Kitten Cam on?
Not yet.
Oh, I think Kitten Cam is coming, you all. She had my chair. She stole my chair and was trying to... We were discussing if we were just going to start the live stream by panning the camera down because she had taken over this chair. So news of the week. I mean, there's a lot of news coming. Yes, Kitten Cam is coming, Claire. There's a lot of running back and forth between rooms and stuff, so I don't know when it's going to appear. I think it's coming, though. I don't think it's going to be very interesting. I think it's just going to be the kitten staring off into space, so. What were we talking about? Oh, news that happened this week. So, there's been, like, while protests are continuing and movement is still happening around Black Lives Matter, the things that dominated my news cycles around personal finance this week ended up being a lot of GLBTQ stuff. And that was because the Supreme Court ended up making some decisions, as well as the Trump administration making some decisions. Amanda says, for those of us without kittens, boring kitten cams are not boring. I guess it's fair. Before I had a cat, when we first got the cat, we used to just watch kitten TV all the time, which was just her doing anything. I said that when we first got the cat. We still do that all the time. But yes, she's very cute. I don't think she's going to move. So the basket she's in, I cleaned the whole house today as part of my chill week. And I mostly avoid that basket. That basket is a bunch of scarves that when we moved into this apartment, I put in there just to move, like soccer scarves, and put it up on top of a thing, and then she got on it, and then it became her favorite place. And the scarves are disgusting. I cannot get the cat hair off of them. And it's a wicker basket, so in addition to eating the basket, every single, like, rung has cat hair in between it. And I feel like no matter how much I can clean cat hair from the rest of the house, like, that is still going to remain a barrier to people that are even mildly allergic to cats that come into our house, because it's just, like, sitting up there as a cat hair bomb. But I don't really know how to fix it at this point. One of those scarves is signed by the entire, like, I've talked about this before in the live stream. One of those scarves is, like, worth money, and it might not be worth money anymore because it's just covered in cat hair. So I pulled up a scarf today and showed Aaron, and it was like the part that was on the top of it was like you could not see the pattern on the scarf for all of the cat hair, and then it was completely clean for the other 2/3 of the scarf because it was like buried under the top 2 layers that were covered in cat hair. It's, you know, it's 4 years of her sitting in that basket, so I don't really know what I can do about it. If anybody has any suggestions for how to get really deeply baked cat hair out of soccer scarves, let me know. Because I have a lot of nice timbers and thorn scarves that I would like to reclaim at some point. Is she walking away from the kitten cam now?
Yeah.
Do you think she's coming in here?
Yeah.
She heard us talking about her. Okay, so trans healthcare. Let's talk about some of... I'm going to start with the bad news, and I'm going to end with the good news. So, on Friday, last week, which I guess is 2 Fridays ago now, which was also the anniversary of the Pulse shooting, the Trump administration tried to issue a new ruling, essentially defining Code 1557, which is part of the Affordable Care Act, which is essentially what runs all healthcare in America. That has a non-discrimination clause in it, which essentially says that you can't charge variant rates of healthcare or deny or refuse healthcare to people based on, race, sex, ethnicity, gender, religion, all of kind of the standard things. And that explicitly under the Obama administration rulings included the fact that you could not discriminate against transgender folks. And that also was, it was phenomenal because before it was totally possible and common practice to charge women more for getting health insurance and health care. And one of the reasons that they charge women more is that women tend to be more complicated because essentially they generally, folks that are assigned female at birth have like a lot more organs going on in there. They interact a lot more with other organs and tend to be more complicated. Also, tend to be the ones that bear children. So they are more expensive. But in addition to that, by the Obama administration's choices to say that you could not deny healthcare to someone based on sex or gender, this included trans folks. And that meant that for the first time, there was essentially a federal law that said that you couldn't deny coverage to someone based on being trans. And it was common practice at both the health insurance level and at the provider level to deny coverage to trans folks. And prior to the ACA, quite a lot of health insurance companies actually tried to find ways to specifically deny specific types of gender-affirming surgeries or treatments. So they would deny an entire category, like facial feminization surgery or, top surgery. And they would do this in an effort to eliminate trans healthcare. But trans healthcare is not just about gender-affirming surgeries and medications. Trans healthcare is also just quite simply about being able to get access to healthcare if you are trans or gender-non-conforming and have the provider take you seriously. Understand that you might have different considerations than someone that is cis. Understand the interactions between if you're taking hormones and using those hormones and other drugs. And making sure that you get called the proper pronouns, all of these things. And there was a survey done in, I believe, 2010 that asked trans patients if they had been, experienced discrimination in how they were provided care in the healthcare system. And 28% of trans folks said that they had experienced discrimination in the healthcare system in the United States. And that's not really surprising, unfortunately. I feel like anybody who is trans or has trans folks in their life probably is aware that discrimination in the healthcare system, based on a bunch of factors, skin color, whether or not you identify with the gender you were assigned at birth, all of these things can really influence your access to care. And the ACA tried to fix it, and let's say the ACA did fix a lot of problems. But what the Trump administration, there's actually the Trans Equity Foundation has a timeline of everything the Trump administration has attempted to do over the course of this administration over the past 3.5 years that was explicitly about trying to remove rights for trans folks. And trans folks have some of the least rights of anyone in this country. And the Trump administration has bit by bit been trying to remove these. And on Friday of last week, they essentially said that now the definition for healthcare is for discrimination in healthcare is based on sex, is based on biology, as is gender is based on biology. And by doing that, they were trying to find a way to make sure that trans folks cannot get access to healthcare. They were also working extremely hard to make it very challenging for same-sex couples to adopt. So that is another thing that ruling kind of had some influence on. I'm not going to get too deep into that because that is many levels of law. But same-sex second-parent adoption is still not legal in a bunch of states, and in addition is something that essentially they're trying to roll back protections on. However, so this all happened Friday last week. Working on an episode, had an interview lined up about this, like, not feeling good about it. And the cruelty of doing this on the anniversary of the Pulse Massacre, just like the Trump administration choosing to do a rally in Tulsa on Juneteenth, as Tulsa, where there was a massacre and a black neighborhood was bombed, doing it just like a mile from there on Juneteenth, is the cruelty is not unintentional. I feel like there was a very clear choice that they were making. There was no reason why it led up to it being rolled out that day. So that happened. Then guess what happened this week? The Supreme Court was, I don't know what they took. I don't know if maybe they just kind of feel like we've all had our rights trampled on enough and have decided to give us some good news this week, because they gave us a bunch of good news this week, including the fact that Dreamers are now going to be able to stay longer, and essentially reversed what was Trump's attempt to reverse Obama's executive order for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA, also known as Dreamers. And DACA was never intended to be a permanent solution, but the Trump administration rolling it back was a very intentional, dog whistle to his base, essentially. But Supreme Court said, no, you actually can't do this for legal reasons I don't fully understand. And then additionally, the other thing they gave us this week was they essentially they established new civil rights law that established that gender discrimination includes sexual preference and gender identity. So the Supreme Court made it now, this is landmark. One thing that I've talked about a lot on the show is that I think a lot of people believe that if we had marriage equality, so to speak, then that was it. That was the final frontier, especially for, white cis gays. It was like, oh, you have marriage equality now. What other kind of civil rights do you need? But the thing was that still in the majority of US states, there were no provisions keeping you from getting fired for being GLBTQ. And this stuff it's still happening. In Portland, Oregon, liberal city in a liberal state, just 2 years ago, we had a young teacher who, had been working at a girls' Catholic high school, who then was, as like a student teacher, and then was offered a contract to go become a full-time teacher the next year now that she was qualified. And then they found out she was married to a woman during the summer and rescinded the offer, the contract for employment. And this is precisely the kind of thing that is both legal and has a huge effect on trans and other GLBTQ folks as far as their financial security. In this country, it has a huge effect on your access to healthcare, because we do this really bizarre thing where we tie your employment status to your access to healthcare. And it's such a big deal. So in most states in the US, you can still fire someone for being gay. You can still fire someone for being trans. Trans folks acquire less wealth than their cis counterparts. They have higher rates of unemployment. And so it's like extremely important. And then on top of that, we have that there's no protections for gay or lesbian or bisexual folks from getting fired from their job. And the Supreme Court this week said that civil rights law that prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex and gender also includes the identity of gender identity and sexual preference, which suddenly meant that all of the existing civil rights law in the United States now actually applies to trans folks, gender non-conforming folks, and gay, lesbian, bisexual, asexual folks. So it makes a massive difference. And there is a possibility that the Trump administration's attempt 2 Fridays ago to threaten access to trans healthcare now is almost impossible. And then in addition, all of the things that the Trump administration has been trying to do to make it possible for adoption agencies to fight working with same-sex couples is now going to be incredibly hard to enforce. And there is a possibility that the Supreme Court just undid a lot of the damage that the Trump administration has done to trans folks, has done to same-sex second-parent adoption in the U.S., all in one big swoop. So that is a good piece of news this week. Also, one of the officers that killed Breonna Taylor got fired, which is also another good piece of news. But I feel like it's really hard to keep up with all of that. So those are things that happened this week. So that's what's going on with trans healthcare. I had a whole episode like ready to go about trans healthcare, and then the Supreme Court ruling came out, and it was just like, I don't know if I need to release this episode anymore. But also, I feel like it's worth letting people know what's at stake there. So I still have to decide how I'm going to do that. So Claire said, I hadn't heard about one of the officers getting fired. That's good news. Not enough, but good. Yes, it is only one step on the many steps to justice, all of which should have happened quite a long time ago. So, yeah. Penny says, huge news. Yeah, I think the thing is like, there's so much stuff coming at us these days in terms of what's happening with the Black Lives Matter movement, with defunding the police, with COVID, with Trump's continuous attacks on immigrants and minorities, and reality, that it can be really challenging to parse each one of these things as they come. And it cannot be understated how pivotal this Supreme Court decision could be. I am not a legal scholar, but I am someone who follows a lot of stuff around healthcare and GLBTQ access to things that affect folks' finance and family status. And I will say the number of implications that I can come up with for this one case, and how hard it is going to make other things that are in the pipeline. There are a lot of things in the pipeline, various cases in various law court pipelines in the United States that are trying to take away rights or trying to make it legal to discriminate on LGBTQI plus people in various different ways, and a ton of them are going to be shut down by essentially this means that LGBTQ people essentially have civil rights law decided in the highest court of the land in the United States now. It cannot be understated how important this is, and I wish I was a lawyer to talk about it more, although I do have a friend who is a trans lawyer, and I should probably talk to her. So, oh. Joe said, yes, Trump's attack on reality is accurate. Yeah, I also think, I've been thinking a lot about how challenging it is to know how to parse what's going on when one of the big sources of news has been so filled with lies. And I know that folks in countries with autocratic media, with autocratic governments and government-controlled media like China, like Russia, have been dealing with this for a really long period of time, where, Chinese newspaper reading, like, this has been such a common thing where, like, they hide codes in their newspapers in order to communicate radical ideas, which I don't fully understand, but I know you can take an entire class on Chinese newspaper reading because there's such a history of it. But I have been having this as someone who had the belief that I lived in a mainly democratic society. And while I didn't have the greatest level of trust in government, I had a level of trust in certain types of messages that were coming out of the government. And I feel like what folks have been experiencing, and it is global simply because America is a hegemony. And so what the USA experiences, unfortunately, the world experiences, except maybe Democratic People's Republic of Korea, because they, as far as they know, we've always been liars. but I have been having this breakdown over the past 3.5 years of just having no idea what media sources to trust. And it has been a global experience, not just because of the fact that the United States is a hegemony and that Trump will say whatever he feels like saying in order to win whatever he's decided the battle is in that particular moment, or because he, like, sees an object and decides to just throw it into whatever he's discussing. But it's additionally because of fake news. And for all of the U.S. Commander-in-Chief's love of the phrase fake news, it is a very real thing that has been impacting all of our realities as far as how we interact with media. And it's fascinating to me how much I now rely on first-person accounts on Twitter, but how fallible they are, right? And watching these protests over the past 3 weeks in the United States has made you realize how much your media has made me realize, I won't use a general you, but has made me realize how much my access to media sources influences the narrative that I take in about the events going on, because this has been such a global protest and it has been so social media linked, and it is a social media protest that is happening on a large scale in a language I understand, unlike a lot of the protests that were happening in other countries where I was just not tuned into whatever their kind of predominant media source was, or I couldn't read the language. And instead, I'm getting all these reports, and you're seeing things on Twitter, and it completely doesn't match the stories that are coming out of certain media sources, and the bias is just so much clearer. And I feel like it's coming from the top. Our grip on reality is slipping away, and there's a whole funnel of factors that go into it. But I think Trump's twisting of the facts and ability to just kind of, he will just decide what reality he wants to put forth and then just repeat it until it happens, and he gets this unlimited free airtime as the president, you know. And I think it's affecting all of our kind of grasps on reality, and I think it's influenced. This is just my pontification, but I think it's influenced why we're seeing so many people protest masks and things like that, because we just don't feel like there is any reality, and it's so hard to have an authority, and we're more commonly picking people to be our authorities in certain things that are not part of an establishment, because we haven't seen that these establishments are reporting the things we kind of care about. And that has led to these sort of demagogue, you know, InfoWars kind of style sites. And that distrust has fed people that say, well, this person that I do trust said that masks are fake and we don't need them and it's a violation of our civil rights, and that kind of fuels that. And I know I'm a victim of it on the other side, so I've been thinking about it a lot. Do we want to eat a donut? That was a lot. Time for a donut. We've already seen this. It's still not looking like great because of the fact that it is a fresh flour. Like, the flour was covering like a much larger percentage of it in the morning, but I'm gonna go for it. Okay. It does taste like matcha. This is a cake donut, not a raised donut, and I much prefer raised donuts. And the matcha flavor is not as strong as I thought it would be. I still have no idea what the red stuff on the top is. It might just be colored like kind of powdered hardened sugar. I can eat the pansy, right? I know pansies are edible, but I don't know if the like top part is. Should I text my mom and ask? My mom is a horticulturist. Joe says, yes, I can eat a pansy, but here's the thing. You live in Australia. What if your pansies are safe to eat and ours are not? Because, like, you have a lot of things that look really adorable and cuddly but can kill you in Australia, so I feel like it'd be the opposite way. Alright, I'll put the pansy back on. Penny says, at their work, we use edible flowers all the time and so many people won't eat them. Yeah, I normally will eat them. We had a whole thing about flowers. So there's a couple people on the forums who are that are also local here. Well, local here or like visit here that are really big foodies. And we had an ongoing joke because they went to this restaurant where there was a bunch of tiny, tiny flowers on every single thing they ate. And it was like a super fancy restaurant. So it was a bunch of tiny flowers being placed individually with tweezers on their food. And so we had an ongoing joke about the placing of tiny flowers on food. And then Aaron and I tried out a like chef's table style plant-based restaurant where it's like all choreographed and a bunch of like, it had like, I don't know, 9 fucking courses or something. And we tried that out and there was flowers on every single course. And we were like, oh. Also, it taught me that while the food was incredible, I don't need to pay for the experience of dining. Like, it was like almost as much, it was like 3 weeks worth of groceries worth of cost to go to that restaurant. And I felt like I would rather get the groceries. I like how you said this could be deadly while eating the pansy. It is not deadly. I think it needed to be like coated in sugar to make a really pretty sugared pansy, but that's also not my job, which is why I feel like it should be, because it sounds very tedious. I like this, but it tastes more like a... Because it's a cake donut, it tastes more like just like a regular pastry and less like a donut. I like my donuts floofy. It's good. Alright. Should I finish it? Or should I try to mix it with the cocktail situation? Like, a bite of this. It's an interesting, because this is like a smoky mocktail, and this is matcha. There's just like a lot of earthy sweetness going on generally. All right, folks, tell me about what you did this week in the chat so that I have something to respond to instead of just ranting about reality. Penny says, ooh, I made an actual sour with the Smoky 56 and it is way better as a mixer. Did you, like, a mixer with alcohol in it? Or did you, like, or did you just use it, like, as a mixer with egg whites and a sour? I'm curious to know if you kept to the non-alcoholic thing or you just... Because I feel like buying non-alcoholic spirits and then mixing them with spirits is maybe a very expensive mixer. 2 ounces of smoky, 1 ounce lemon, and 1 ounce of simple. Oh yeah, Erin made this for me, so it won't have any simple syrup in it because Erin doesn't eat refined sugar. I actually did not like Erin. I was not into cocktails because I'm very cheap before I met Erin. The most fancy I would get would be like a well whiskey with the like very cheap sour mix at a dive bar. That was like the fanciest I'd get. And but mostly I just drank whiskey neat. I guess if you consider it a cocktail, when I lived in Berlin, I used to drink disco mate, which there is this drink called Club Mate or Club Mate. It's like a pun, because, yeah. And it is a mate flavored, and in Germany, soft drinks come in bottles this big. Beverages just come in extremely large sizes in Germany. So you would get like a standard 1-person sized bottle, and it would be this big. And what disco mate is you go up to the club, you'd order a disco mate, be like, ein disco mate bitte, and they just open the cap of the club mate, which is not alcoholic, and have you drink like this much out of it, and then they pour vodka into the top of it and cap it and hand it back to you. And that's what a disco mate is. But it's very important in Berlin, where nothing starts before about 1 a.m, which was very challenging for me. But I eventually discovered that it was actually better to just go to bed at about 6 and then go out at 3 or 4 in the morning, because things in Berlin usually start around 1 a.m. on the weekends and go until like 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. So, but you need a lot of caffeine combined with like a little bit of alcohol to like make it work. I actually didn't drink caffeine at all until I lived in Germany, and I started drinking caffeine because I spent a lot of time waiting on very cold S-Bahn platforms at 4 or 5 in the morning, and there were coffee machines, and that was a way to get hot coffee when it was like negative 10 degrees outside and you're stuck on an S-Bahn platform wearing something that you would wear to a club like Berghain. So I started drinking coffee mostly for the warmth and a little bit for the trying not to fall asleep on the train and miss my final stop, which I only did once. Once I lived 2 stops from the end of the line on the 25, and because I lived like pretty far, Berlin's a huge city, so I lived like almost at the edge of actual Berlin, and so that meant I spent a lot of time in the 25, and I lived 2 stops from the end of the line, and one night I fell asleep. It wasn't night, it was like 6 in the morning. One night I fell asleep on the train coming home, because I had like 20 minutes on the train after all of my friends had already gotten off. And I woke up and I heard, Matcha station, like next station. And I would, I was kind of like awake, and I heard Matcha station, and I heard like the station right before my station. And I was like, oh, good. I've got 2 more stops. And then I looked up at the board that would show like the next 3 stops, and I realized it was the next station because it had gone to the end of the line and reversed and come all the way back, and I'd actually passed my stop twice. So then I had to get out there and wait for a train to go the other way. But luckily it's Berlin, so the train, even at that time in the morning on a Sunday, still the most you're gonna wait is 10 minutes. But also it's very cold. But that's why I started drinking caffeine. Anyway, I don't know how. I just went on a really long rant about German train systems for no reason. Oh, I was saying I didn't drink cocktails really before I met Erin, and Erin is bougie and likes cocktails. And therefore, everything I really learned about cocktails, I learned because Erin would make cocktails for me, and since Erin doesn't eat refined sugar, that meant that my idea of what a cocktail is was based around this no refined sugar version of it. So when other people had my version of a non-alcoholic margarita, they're like, this is just lemon juice with sparkling or lime juice with sparkling water with a salted rim. It's not like, this is like acidic and terrible. And I'd be like, oh no, it's great. It's like, it tastes just like a margarita. Because most people are used to it with some simple syrup. So I'm gonna finish this donut now. Oh my god, Amanda, it does look like a Pokeball. You're totally correct. What kind of Pokeball, though, would it be? Because it's, like, greenish. I think someone's on the hunt for a kitten. Aaron, I'm able to watch what's going on with the kitten cam right now on my monitor, and it's like a tour of our now clean apartment because I cleaned the apartment yesterday or today, whatever day it is. Who knows time anymore? Anyway, that's my story about Berlin. That's why I started drinking caffeine. I was out, so I went clubbing a lot when I lived in Berlin, partially because that's just like the pastime in Berlin. That's like the sport of Berlin as a city. But also I just had lots of queer friends, and I had a lot of people come to visit me. So when they'd visit, they'd want to go out and see like Berghain, like very famous Berlin clubs. And I had like a group of friends that would like go out pretty much clubbing every weekend. And clubs in Berlin are very different than the rest of the world, I would say. They tend to be like very artsy and a little weird. And I'm just such a morning person. I hated that nothing in Berlin started before really late. And one time I saw like a early bird sign. Like it was in German. It was like, oh, it was an early bird sign to go to a club. And I was like, yes, early bird dance. And then I looked and the early bird dance started at 11 p.m., which is the Berlin definition of an early bird dance. Because usually you're still getting ready with all of your friends before you even go to the bar to pregame before you go to the club. Look at that kitten. She's so cute. She's sitting on her cattress, which is a modular cat tower shaped like a Tetris. It holds up surprisingly well. We've had it as long as we've had the cat, so. What did people do this week other than make drinks? Dora looks like a fuzzy dino, Amanda says. Yes. Definitely a fuzzy dino. No one will tell me what they're doing with their week. They're all just talking about the cat now. This cocktail is so good.
I'm so glad.
I know. I'm really concerned because I was doing fine with no cocktail facsimiles in my life. Like, I just wasn't spending any money on that. It was great. Penny says, okay, I'm a Google sleuth. It really doesn't take that much Google sleuthing to find I tag the donut shop in every story I do with the donuts. Also, there's only like 3 vegan donut shops in Portland, so it's really not that challenging. But I appreciate your sleuthing. Penny says, give me my glory. Okay. It didn't taste like raspberry in any way, shape, or form, and I don't know if that's because like the matcha glaze had really hardened from the temperature changes that I put the poor donut through, or it's just because I didn't taste any raspberry, I will say. Claire says, what did I do this week? I found my toddler's other boot and started taking him out in the rain. He was thrilled with it, especially going puddle jumping today. Yeah, it is raining really hard in Portland today, although I guess it's now sunny and nice, killing my excuse to not go outside, which I was feeling pretty good about my decision to not go outside. But, yeah, it's like, was pouring rain earlier this morning, and I had a moment of like, well, maybe it means less people will be outside, because yesterday was the first day that Portland opened. Like bars and a lot of like restaurants, and I think even like some salons and stuff are able to start opening like with certain social distancing in effect. I think only like outdoor seating or like half capacity or something. But everywhere was packed and no one was wearing masks. Like, we were out, and other than like an occasional person wearing a mask other than us, it did not look like there was a pandemic going on at all. I didn't go to the Juneteenth Black Lives Matter rally because I knew it would be really huge, and I've been trying to stay away from the protests just because that number of people, I think, would be dangerous as an immunosuppressed person. But apparently that was at like 99% mask compliance, whereas all the people that were not out at the protest and were out at the bar, none of them were wearing a mask. So Joe says, I'm about to go out to the garden center, and then this week's my partner's at work, so I'm home with kiddo, but I also get 2 days completely alone at home by myself because we're back at daycare. Oh yeah, I forgot that you now have some daycare. That's very exciting. Are you gonna do, you're done with school or you're never really done with school because you're in grad school, I guess. But are you, like, going to do work on those days, or are you going to, like, do other life stuff? Joe was like, never done. Yeah, okay. Doing school stuff. Are you going into work, or are you just working from home, Joe? Amanda says the most unusual thing that she did this week was forget to wear deodorant 3 days in a row. I actually initially read that was the most impressive thing you did this week was wear deodorant 3 days in a row, and I feel like either side is fair. You know, it's important. If no one's going to smell you, it's important to give your underarms a break from deodorant, because underarm skincare is just as important as the rest of your body, and constantly putting things that like block and clog up your pores on it every day. Most people don't wash off their deodorant at the end of the night before they go to sleep, so they need to breathe. It's important. Especially if you're using antiperspirant, because that stuff really does clog up pores. Fun facts. I actually studied a lot about armpits this week because I was considering shaving my armpits, and which I haven't done in like 8 years. And last time I did it, it really didn't go very great. So I started doing some research on it. So I found a video, Cosmo or Glamour, that was a ballerina's like beauty routine, but she talked about her armpits and shaving her armpits and armpit health for like a really long period of time, because she has to have an extremely close shave on her armpits like every day because she's performing every night and she's part of a corps de ballet, so they all have to have matching armpits, so to speak. And so she spent a lot of time talking about it. It was very very fascinating. Amanda says, I've literally never thought about armpit skincare. Yeah, I mean, fair. I understand that. I don't really have to think about it very much because I have so much hair under there that blocks it from having to worry about it. This is like, I'm still so conflicted because I have all of these bras that I got that I want to do a whole like review on. And I was considering, because I think it would be helpful to other people, not because I desperately need to put my boobs on the internet. But I honestly don't mind putting my boobs on the internet. I'm very concerned about having my underarm hair exposed on the internet, especially close-up shots, and all of the trolling and possibly fetish comments that I will get. And that's not paranoia. That is based on a lot of experience on the internet as someone who doesn't shave their armpits. And so, I don't know, I was still really conflicted. I was like, should I shave my armpits just to, like, avoid that? But then, am I kowtowing to the patriarchy? I've talked so much this live stream. We're really just all over the place. I feel like there's more productive stuff in this than last week's live stream, so. Anyone else done anything else? It sounds like Joe might actually go into the office, which will be very exciting. I'm very jealous of offices. Oh. Amanda says, you can use my decision-making metric, which is to be indecisive until it's no longer relevant. That's mine as well, except I add onto that extensive amount of research to make myself indecisive. So, that's mine as well. But I need to return these bras because I bought like a ton of bras so that I would have to return them rather than like a small amount and then I end up not returning them because it's just one or two and I'm like, fine, I'll just spend the money. I bought enough that I have to return at least some of them. And I don't know, I feel like it would be just kind of a waste to order this many bras and not, like, in some way make it helpful for the internet, but maybe it doesn't really matter. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe nothing matters. It doesn't seem like anything matters anymore. All right. Well, it's been an hour. We've covered everything from falling asleep on the train in Berlin to non-alcoholic cocktails to whether or not pansies are edible in both hemispheres to what else have we covered? It's been all over the map. Oh yeah, actual topics about personal finance and healthcare and trans rights. So, I think that's all we're going to talk about for this evening. And I'm really excited to go catch up on RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars, which I didn't watch last night, so don't spoil it for me. And then tomorrow, I guess, get back to work. But thank you all for joining and spending a little time on Sunday here with me. If there's anything you actually want to cover before we sign off, speak now or forever hold your peace until next week. And as always, please be safe. Wash your hands. Eat a donut if you have access to a donut. Pet a kitty. Drink water. And wear a mask when you go outside. All right. Have a good night.
Should I end on cat cam?
Yes, definitely.